Hello, friends. My name is Kamal Manocha. I represent PMSAIF World. Today, we have a very interesting guest, a good friend, Mr. Ashish Somaiya. And incidentally, today it's his first day at a new organization. So we'll cover all personal stuff later, maybe in Q&A. I'll just give a quick introduction to the topic. We have been Ashish. We have been running this series called Crystal Gazing: Next Decade of Wealth Creation for Investors, and this series has been going on, for quite some time. We have invited, many money managers, many thought leaders, and we have been doing, a lot of topics. In fact, for coming Friday, a session is scheduled with Mr. Khemka already.
Yeah.
But there was this announcement from SEBI, which came all of a sudden, and markets were kind of always kind of looking forward for some unexpected things, because unexpected things definitely do happen. We have seen in the past also, right? So that led to too many questions coming our way, and there were many investors who are invested in multi-cap mutual funds. Many family offices we deal with who are invested in multi-cap mutual funds and kind of multi-cap portfolios. Plus, besides that, in general, because we have been trying to spread the environment of informed investing, so we thought of taking this responsibility to address some of those questions. So, as we discussed, the topic of this particular session is what is the broad thought process which SEBI has behind coming up with this ruling around multi-cap funds. This is point number one. Point number two, what are the various options that SEBI has given to mutual fund companies, and what are the various possible, I would say, avenues that they have to comply with whatever SEBI has suggested, and has SEBI given any time to kind of implement that. Whatever we saw in the market today, I think that happened only purely on the basis of expectations, right? So I do not know whether any mutual fund has actually acted, but the retail audience, the investors in general, have reacted to it. So whether investors' reaction has been correct or not, what are your suggestions in that regards? This is point number three, right? And then point number four, what are your views in this regards? If one has to compare mutual fund structures and with a PMS structure in this context, and then after that, we'll do Q&A. Over to you.
Sure, Kamal. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and I would like to welcome all our guests and thank them also for sparing their time and listening to us and giving us the opportunity to speak to them. Like you rightly pointed out, over the weekend, suddenly this particular clarification and then a further clarification. I mean, the first, why I said clarification, meaning Friday evening, is probably the first time that it came out quite clearly that the multi-cap fund in the mutual funds has to be defined in a particular manner. See, till now, everybody used to think that multi-cap meaning it's a laissez-faire, in the sense that if it is multi-cap means you can have any kind of investment allocation. It could be large cap, it could be mid cap, it could be small cap, it could be a combination. And everybody used to assume that when you're investing in a multi-cap fund, you are leaving it to the judgment of the portfolio manager to decide which is the attractive segment of the market, and then place your money, the corpus of the fund, according to their best judgment or discretion. Obviously, Friday evening is when the circular came that the regulator clarified that multi-cap means that you need to have money across small cap, mid cap, and large cap. Not only that, they of course went ahead and defined that 25% of the money has to be in minimum 25% large cap, minimum 25% mid cap, minimum 25% small cap, and the balance 25 can be anywhere. Now, if you actually see before this circular came, what is the situation with multi-cap funds? Two things. One is these multi-cap funds are benchmarked mainly to Nifty 500. Nifty 500 has 500 stocks, but the reality is that Nifty 500 itself is predominantly a large cap index with about 75 to 80% in large cap, about 15% in mid cap, and about 5% of the allocation is small cap. So while it has 500 stocks, but obviously it's not an equal weighted index or something. And like everything in life, there also 80-20 principle works. So top 20 or top 30 stocks would be contributing, the large caps would be contributing bulk of that index weightage. So first is that the benchmark to which these multi-cap funds are benchmarked that benchmark itself is large cap heavy, although it is broad market. The second important point is circumstance or situation specific, which is that in the last couple of years, if you really look at it, 2018, the regulator enforced that, if you're running a small cap fund, where it should invest. If you're running a mid cap fund, where should it invest? Now, if you see historically, 2017, 2018, till early 2018, actually, there was a huge rally in small and mid caps. And at that point in time, people had, like mid cap funds had small cap exposure, large cap funds also had some mid cap exposure. So whenever there is a broad market rally, funds tend to spread out into mid cap and small cap also. Now, 2018, the regulator came with a guideline saying that a large cap fund has to have investment in a certain pattern, mid cap has to have in a certain pattern. So 2018, actually, it came through that funds had to sell some 25-30,000 crores worth of small caps. And that's where the small cap route, one of the reasons where the small cap route began. And then ILFS default, oil prices went to $88. And then you've seen the economy slowing down. And on top of it, there is COVID, which has been kind of backbreaking. So multiple things have happened in the last 2.5 years, whereby funds ended up having predominantly large cap exposure. So before Friday's clarification, if you see the scenario, most mutual funds in the multi-cap category have actually 75, 80, 85% exposure in large caps, right up to 85, 90% exposure in large caps. And Friday evening, suddenly the clarification came that, okay, it's not supposed to be this way. Your multi-cap fund is actually looking like it's a large cap fund. We already have a set of regulations which clearly says that in every category, you can have only one fund. So what are we trying to do? You already have a large cap fund, and now your multi-cap fund is also being run as if it's a large cap fund. Now, my humble understanding or my limited understanding is that this current scenario of multi-cap funds is more situation specific or more circumstantial. I already explained to you last 2.5 years, there have been issues with small and mid caps. They have generally underperformed, or at least there has been some value destruction. Like somebody who came 2-3 years back also is 25-30% down in small and mid caps. All of it is not just fundamentals. It's also the fact that, the environment has been not conducive to investing in small and mid cap. And SEBI's own moves of 2018 in some sense resulted in an outflow from small and mid cap. So fund managers, even if they're managing multi-cap funds, they will do what works best in terms of generating performance on a relative basis. So there are many, many reasons. And just to recap, two things. One, the benchmark itself is heavy in large cap. And two, there are very many market related or circumstantial or economy related reasons whereby multi-cap funds ended having so much money in large cap. What has that created a problem? The problem it has created is that you're supposed to have one fund in a category. So you already have a large cap fund. So how are you running your multi-cap fund as if it's a large cap fund? Forget the market circumstance and economy and all, but how are you running a multi-cap fund as if it's a large cap? And that probably resulted in this circular where it was clarified that you can't run your multi-cap as if it's a large cap. Obviously, you will not be able to run your multi-cap as if it's a mid-cap. So your multi-cap fund is now going to have a tighter definition. It's not going to be laissez-faire. And your multi-cap fund is going to be 25% minimum large cap, 25% minimum mid-cap, 25% minimum in small cap. What is the fallout of this? The fallout of this, which the market immediately kind of started thinking about Friday evening, is that, oh, okay, so if all these multi-cap funds have so much money in large cap, and the circular says that by January, you fall in line with this 25, 25, 25, and you can't be laissez-faire anymore. So then it's, Microsoft Excel, very easy to calculate. You take the month-end portfolio of all the funds, and you will be able to see how much is large cap, mid cap, small cap. So automatically you'll be able to calculate that if you take a sum total of all the multi-cap funds in the industry, how much is currently in large cap, how much is in mid cap, how much is in small cap. Hence, what is the deficit? And in the next 4 months, like October, November, December, up to January, in the next 4 months, what do you need to do to cover the deficit? And then as you track social media or the internet, you must have seen that by certain accounts, people have calculated that, okay, if you need to cover the deficit as a multi-cap guy, you need to buy 25 or maybe 30,000 crores worth of small cap and about 10,000 crores worth of mid cap. That was the calculation which was available by Friday evening. Now, obviously, it resulted in some panic because there are some multi-cap funds which are as big as 25,000 crores, 20,000 crores in corpus. Now, if a 25,000 crore fund, let us say, has only 80% in large cap and 15% in mid cap, and let's say only 5% in small cap. So that on a base of 25,000 crores, you have to change the small cap allocation by 20%. Means you are supposed to actually buy, let's say right now you have 5, you're supposed to have 25%. So on 25,000 crore corpus, if you have to buy 20% worth of small caps, so you have to buy 5,000 crores worth of small caps. Now, there are so many, I mean, what is the definition of a small cap? A 5,000 crore market cap company could be a small cap. Now, if I have to buy 5,000 crores worth of small cap stocks, just imagine how many stocks I'll have to buy, because I can't buy up the whole free float, or I can't buy up more than 10% of any company's capital, right? So somewhere on Friday night, it became embedded in people's head that 30,000 crore worth of small cap buying has to happen. And there are such gigantic funds. XYZ fund will have to buy 2,000 crores. Another fund will have to buy 3,000 crores. All these kind of things started floating. And then, as you are aware, Sunday evening, there was another clarification further on this circular saying that, okay, look, don't panic. How do you get in line with this regulation? You have 3 or 4 choices. So let's say you're running a multi-cap fund, which now is looking like it's a large cap fund. One of your choices, a regulator came with a circular, which was clarification Sunday evening. So there they presented some 4 choices. So first choice was that, okay, you already have a large cap fund. Your multi-cap fund is also looking like a large cap fund. So you combine the 2 funds, merge it. That was one thing you could do. Second thing, okay, you have a very large fund. How do you get to 25, 25, 25 allocation? It's very difficult. Okay, so you try to reduce the fund size. Tell some people to move from multi-cap into some of your other funds. Another choice, change the category of your multi-cap fund. You're not able to comply with this multi-cap fund by running it as a multi-cap fund. You see your entire bouquet of products. You see which category you are not there, which category you should, this multi-cap fund, if you take the portfolio as is, which other category can you put it into? For example, I know a fund house which has a multi-cap fund. It doesn't have a large cap fund. And currently their multi-cap fund looks like a large cap. So for example, the regulator would say, okay, then you convert this into large cap and you create multi-cap separately. So what are the choices, or what are the choices which came out of that clarification? You can, if your multi-cap fund is looking like large cap, you can mix it and merge it with your large cap fund. You can change the category of the multi-cap if you're not able to run it like a multi-cap is expected to be run. You can reduce your fund size and tell investors to switch into other things. Or if you can't do any of this, then please by Jan 2021, you have to fall in line with what the regulation is suggesting. Now let's evaluate these choices. Let's see the first choice. Should I convert my multi-cap fund into large cap fund? The first thing is that I may already have a large cap fund, so I can't convert. So then I can only merge. Okay. If you merge, what is the size of the large cap fund? How different is the large cap portfolio and the multi-cap portfolio? Yeah, I mean, admittedly, both might be having large cap, but can you just merge? How much churn will that result in? The other consideration is that if you do these kind of mergers, then the name of the scheme has to change. If I'm running a scheme for last 10, 15, 20 years, the name of the scheme becomes a brand name. If I merge, if I change the objective, if I change the name, then so many marketing dollars and so much of awareness in investors' mind and the entire recognition, entire track record, everything could go for a toss. If you tell investors to switch out, well, they can switch out and they may not come back. They can go to another AMC. Investors might have tax implications. You'll have to give an exit without exit load. So a lot of these choices are not easy. Like for example, if you try to recategorize, now should I make my multi-cap fund? Okay, I am a fund house. I don't have a value or a contra fund or a dividend yield fund. So can I convert my multi-cap fund? It's not fitting into multi-cap. I can't put it into large cap because already there is a collateral damage. So should I convert my multi-cap fund into a contra fund or a value fund or a dividend yield fund? Well, that would entail a lot of changes to the portfolio. So long story short is that according to me, now there are only 2 choices. One choice, if you do not have a large cap fund, or if you have a very tiny large cap fund, then you can convert your multi-cap fund into large cap. That is one choice, which is easy, doesn't have collateral damage. except that, okay, name might change and all. The other choice is telling investors to switch out, trying to reduce the fund size by spreading it into other schemes, or changing the objective completely, like saying that, okay, I will convert this into a value or a contra fund because there these caps are not having any limitations. Well, that would entail a complete change to the portfolio if you want to stick to the definition of what you're getting into. So that's again very difficult. So long story short, there are two choices. One, if you do not have a large cap fund, or if you have a very tiny large cap fund, you can move your multi cap into large cap, right? Or the other choice is that in the next 3 to 4 months, you have to comply with the regulation. So this is where we are. And I think as a result of that, I think, my own sense is that the funds will have to, I've been around in the industry and I can sense, my sense is that funds will have to make changes to their portfolios. It's not going to be easy. And then, of course, the Association of Mutual Funds might, the great or the best part about our regulation is that I have been part of certain discussions, and I respect the regulator for the fact that there is genuinely an open door kind of policy. You can give feedback. Otherwise, in 48 hours, you wouldn't have got so many clarifications. So there is a sensitivity that we don't want to cause disturbance in the market. At the same time, we don't want these multi-cap funds to look like large cap funds and, confuse investors and, have a backdoor that, have multiple funds in the same category by tweaking these things. So the intent behind the regulation is very clear. Open door policy, willingness to listen, willingness to recalibrate, that also is obviously very, very clear. And I think we have to watch out how fund houses tackle. Last thing, every fund house will have different ways of tackling the issue because they all have different circumstances in relation to their product range itself. Last point, what should investors do? Well, I think from investors' perspective, I would say that they should not jump to any conclusions. I'll tell you the reason why. Ultimately, when you invest in a multi-cap fund, you went in there leaving the discretion with the fund manager. Now there is a regulation to be adhered to, and fund managers will obviously keep the circumstances of situation in mind. And since you have given them the mandate to balance your market cap, now multi-cap fund will not have that automatic thing. It will have to be 25, 25, 25. So now from an investor's perspective, if you thought that you should have a fund which automatically balances, then I think you will have to rely more on your advisor or your distributor to help you do it, because these multi-cap funds are going to become more like all cap funds rather than multi-cap necessarily, right? Don't do anything in panic on an immediate basis. Every fund house, like I said, will have different reaction. Let them announce how they are going to conduct their affairs in the next in the coming future, and then take a call. It's a situation specific or a fund house specific or a scheme specific decision to be made. You can't assume the same things about all the fund houses. Two things before I hand it back to you. One is that don't get carried away so much by the regulatory announcement. I'm any which way, if you ask me, I have been a fan of investing in small and mid cap. Yes, it's not worked out in the last 2 years, but that doesn't change anything as far as conviction is concerned. The reason being that if you're in India, India is barely 2 trillion out of the global 75, 80 trillion dollar market cap, right? As a country, we are living in a small cap. As a country, we are a small cap, correct? And there is a long path of growth which is yet to come. And I don't think India can grow without a large number of mid-cap companies becoming large cap, or a large number of small cap companies at least becoming mid-cap. Yes, small and mid-cap is fraught with risk. When you buy 25 companies, 3-4 will actually fall by the wayside. That's part of investing. It is fraught with risk. But I've always been a 100% high conviction votary of investing in small and mid caps. So that is an essential part of the portfolio. Last 2 to 3 years experience was not good. So everybody's portfolio has a significant underweight as far as small and mid cap is concerned. So this is any which way a time, when the economy recovers, when macros start looking favorable, small and mid caps tend to outperform. So this is anywhere time to have more exposure to small and mid caps. So relook your allocation with the help of your advisors. That's the first message. Second thing is that I think that this kind of straitjacketing, mutual funds are mass retail vehicles. And a lot of the efforts that the regulator makes in mutual funds is to have standardization and risk control and true labeling and these kind of things so that people can understand everything. Like when you say multi-cap, what does it mean? Well, it's a fact that last 2 years when you said multi-cap, it looked like large cap. So the regulator is trying to rectify those nomenclatures and standardization. But a lot of what happens in mutual funds is done because it is for the mass retail audience, hence so much effort of standardizing things. But if you are a risk-seeking investor and if you are somebody who would like to chase high returns with high risk, then clearly PMS and AIF tend to be a better choice. The reason being that they are not meant for mass retail kind of vehicles. They allow more risk taking in the quest for potentially a higher return, because as you are aware, when you manage or a PMS or a AIF, you are answerable to your constitution, not necessarily any standardized notion of what a large cap or a mid cap should be. So, considering that PMS and AIF vehicles, on one hand, continue to maintain their flexibility, and mutual funds, on the other hand, continue to get more and more straitjacketed for a good reason, of course. But given that these differences are increasing, my sense is that the preference for PMS and AIF because of the flexibility would tend to actually rise as a result of these changes. So these are the thoughts I wanted to share with you, Kamal. I'm quite sure I might have missed few things on the agenda that you laid out at the beginning. Feel free to point out if there is anything I missed covering, or if there are any questions we could take.
Thank you so much, Ashish. So, you have covered, I think, all parts. So, one particular question that, has been coming, what is your personal perspective on why SEBI has done this? So, has SEBI done this purely to actually standardize, or, they see that valuations in large caps have kind of overstretched? We know, Nifty PE is kind of, beyond, numbers that have that anyone has heard of. They are above 33, 34.
Yeah.
And at the same time, obviously, the gap between valuation mid cap and small cap, mid cap and large cap, mid small and large cap has been kind of there. But what is your personal perspective on this?
No, I don't think the
is
regulator
SEBI trying to achieve something?
No, I don't believe that the regulator would like to influence valuations or allocation of which way money is going. Yes, well, sometimes unintentionally, or more, not even unintentionally, it might cause a short-term aberration. Like, for example, in 2018, see what happens is that mutual funds are being managed, in the quest for absolute return, relative return, in line with market circumstances. So many of those things are influencing how funds are managed, right? On the other hand, if you see regulators, I don't think they are trying to influence where funds should put money. Well, that may be a fallout of what they do, but I don't think that's their prime motivator. And I don't think their prime motivator is also to point out to you that, okay, Nifty is expensive, small cap is cheap, so please rebalance. I don't think that is their intention. I think their intention is to standardize and make things easier to understand. Now, when you standardize, there's no way to standardize other than to say that, okay, look, boss, if you are calling yourself multi-cap, then I don't want a situation where one multi-cap guy has 50% in large cap, another multi-cap guy has 80% in large cap. There is a third guy who's also calling multi-cap, but he has nothing other than 100% in large cap. So what will happen is that if you are having multi-cap, what is the definition of multi-cap? Well, yes, you and me are industry participants. We can say multi-cap is multi-cap. Keep it laissez-faire, keep it open. It can buy anything. But then that's not multi-cap, that is all cap. See, I don't want to confuse this with getting nomenclatures and those kinds of things. But just to clarify on your question, I would put it this way. The regulator's intent is always to simplify and standardize. In the short term, there may be some fallouts of that. I don't think we should mix the two things.
Sure. Again, another question, basically based on your understanding, how you kind of read all these regulatory moves.
Hmm.
So, when there was already a large cap category,
Hmm.
and multi cap funds have kind of invested more in large cap,
Haji.
right, and maybe less in mid and small cap over last 2 years, and today they
Yeah.
are skewed towards large cap.
Haji.
Why was that so? Was it not possible for them to deploy so much amount of corpus that they were collecting through SIPs or through investors into mid and small cap, or was it to do with their less conviction towards mid and small cap, or
No, so two things,
yeah,
two reasons. Some people might say that, well, our benchmark is Nifty 500, and Nifty 500 itself is 70-80% large cap, 15% mid cap, and less than 5% in small cap. So, what wrong have I done if I am in line with the underlying benchmark? So, I am taking my stock specific calls, but I am not taking any cap specific calls. So, I'm deciding which stock to buy, which stock not to buy. But as far as large cap, mid cap, small cap is concerned, I would like to be in line with the index. Now, that's a perfectly acceptable justification. Apart from that, it's a fact that, well, beginning end of 2017, early 2018, we did not have any big warning signs as far as the economy is concerned, because economy was recovering from demonetization and GST and all, and we were doing reasonable numbers at that time. But when ILFS collapsed, when oil went to $88, when these things happened, then clearly you would have a situation where small and mid cap suffers more. And then the economy went to 4.5% kind of GDP growth. Then we went into this whole COVID impact. So leave the benchmark logic aside. You just see the occurrences in the market when the economy is slowing down so badly. Liquidity was tight in end of 2018. Oil was $88. After that, while liquidity has been normalized, but or we are flooded with liquidity, but because of COVID, the economy came to a grinding halt. So there are so many perfectly valid reasons why a guy who has been given the freedom to allocate money in any cap, I think it's perfectly valid logic that you should put money in large cap, or you put money in large cap. There is a perfectly expectable reason for that. Uh, and in the past, I have run a lot of portfolios which were predominantly small and mid cap, or portfolios which had large plus mid cap. And 2018-19, they suffered because of having those exposures. So in the last 2 years, we have seen what happened if you had large cap and what happened if you had a lot of small and mid cap. It is in line with the economic occurrences and the stock market related reasons. So there is a perfect explanation as to why these multi cap funds have so much money in large cap. At the same time, do I believe that these guys would have kept it as is? No, I don't believe it. I think eventually, if you expect the economy to come out of the doldrums, if you expect that these low interest rates and high liquidity and oil prices coming down, etc., if all of that would augur well for the macros, answer is yes. And then small and mid cap exposure would have eventually gone up. Even before this regulatory change, in the last couple of months, if I'm not wrong, small and mid cap had started to outperform large caps on quite a few days. And my sense is that this was more circumstantial, and eventually a lot of these multi-cap funds would have tended towards, well, they wouldn't tend to, I've never seen them tending towards 25 25 25 kind of split, but I wouldn't be surprised if on their own these funds would have headed towards 50-60% large cap, maybe 30% mid cap, and 10% in small cap. I think one of the challenges in implementing what has come up could be that we are insisting on 25% small cap. Now that's kind of a high number according to what I understand, my humble understanding. So I'm sure a lot of these things are being discussed, and we might see some clarity over the next few days.
like asset allocation is one decision which is best ideally done by investor himself, because it's his personal choice. Now, market cap allocation decision, right? Through solutions of, for example, products like multi-cap funds, or the various or flexi cap funds and all, right, which is available. Would you suggest investors to kind of, because investors have kind of okay, let me reframe it like this: asset allocation decision, investors kind of used to rely on advisor or used to rely on product manufacturer by putting money into balanced funds, balanced advantage
Yeah.
funds, or capital protected funds, right? Or dynamic asset allocation funds. And then maybe over years of experience, many investors have learned that asset allocation is a decision that investors should do himself.
Hmm.
Rather than putting money into hybrid fund, I should create my own asset allocation, and that will give debt and equity in my own control,
Hmm.
right? So that is something which investors have over years learned. Now maybe because of this announcement, investors will learn that I should do market cap allocation also on my own, right? I should create my own mid cap portfolio, my small cap portfolio, my large cap
Yeah.
portfolio, and not a flexi cap portfolio, because a flexi cap portfolio is prone to so many kind of uncertainties, like
Yeah.
like a dynamic asset allocation portfolio is always prone to, because of
Yeah.
two asset classes playing together. What is your answer to this thought?
See, I have always been a votary of investing in small and mid cap, right? And if a multi, see, I think what we need is clarity. अब आपने रूल बता दिया कि भाई मल्टी कैप फंड विल बी 25 25 25, चलिए ठीक है. नाउ वी नो इट इज, दिस इज हाउ इट विल बी, राइट? I don't see any. I mean, there would, the industry is talking, and we all are also meeting, and we know that there will be execution challenges. But per se, once I know that this is what this fund will do, then I can make up my mind that okay, do I want this? Do I not want this? But by and large, I understand where you're coming from, and I think yes, with the help of advisor like yourselves or with their own understanding, I do agree with one observation of yours, which is that you should learn to do your own allocation on the large, mid, and small cap. Take help of your advisor or whatever it is, whoever that is guiding you. And of course, you, Kamal, are an expert on that given your huge background. I know you since your Citibank days. So, from that perspective, I think yes, that help will be needed now. And if there is one guidance or one, at least my view, then I would always say that anybody who's risk seeking, anybody who is a 10-year plus long term kind of investor, should have at least half the portfolio in small and mid cap. That's how I would put it.
Right. So what are your now future plans? You have joined new organization here as a CEO at White Oak Capital. So I'm sure you would have future plans. You have spent eight years in Motilal,
Yeah.
and today is your first day. Right? We have kind of discussed heavy topic. So I think I would just want to understand from you on your perspective, because you come with around 2 decades of experience.
Yeah.
And given the way the type of markets we are in, there are definitely uncertainties.
Yeah.
Our stance is also optimistic, but cautiously optimistic, because
Yeah.
there are uncertainties, right?
Yeah.
And we know in long term India is a story which will play out. Corporate earnings have to go up.
Yeah.
GDP numbers have been low and they will kind of recover, right? So what is your take on India, on economy, right? Given now your responsible role of leading, a name which is trying to build, right?
Yeah.
So over to you in this regards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's only incidental that today is my first day and we are meeting today because, as we spoke, I mean, it's purely coincidental that on this weekend, a important regulation came up, and then, of course, we decided to meet and discuss it. But yeah, I would say it's a big day for me. In my 20 years in the asset management industry, broadly, I worked only for two companies. My largest stint was nearly 12 years with ICICI, and last 8 years with Motilal Oswal. So considering I have not changed jobs, it's a big day for me. Um, so White Oak, I mean, not many people. I don't know. I mean, yes, you had Prashant on your platform, I guess, before also. So there would be some familiarity. But White Oak, I think, is a great organization. More than $2 billion of equity assets under management. And lesser known fact is that actually White Oak manages a lot more money for foreigners investing in India than for Indians investing in India. Because in India, there is a couple of thousand crores in AIFs and about 3 to 400 crores in PMS. But nearly about 13 to 14,000 crores is managed through funds that are registered in Mauritius, London, and Dublin for global investors. Mainly for European HNIs and sovereign wealth funds and global institutions investing into India. So while White Oak is an India equity manager, it's different because they manage more money for large global institutions investing into India than they manage for actually Indians investing in India. And my responsibility is obviously to scale up on the portfolio management services and the AIF. And in the near future, we will be creating our own asset management company and also launching mutual funds over the next couple of years, next year or two, actually. It's a 100% equity oriented company. Like I said, lesser known fact, it manages a huge corpus for foreigners investing in India. And the last thing which is unique about this firm is that it is started by a professional and managed by professionals. Like the founder, that is Prashant. He was CIO for Goldman Sachs for India equity and for global emerging markets. So it's a professional who has branched out and set up his own firm, and then onboarded other professionals like me to help him manage as well as grow the operations. And plus, of course, it has a very strongly defined investing philosophy, which we all are bound to execute upon. So I look forward to a long, like my last two stints have been reasonably long. So I'm sure, for the next 10 to 15 years, I see myself here. And like you rightly pointed out, as far as investing in Indian equity is concerned, I know that there is a lot of disappointment with how things have played out in the last 3 to 5 years. But every year there has been an event: demonetization, GST, RERA, the ILFS default. Some of these were avoidable, but if you look at it this way, that towards the fag end of last year and the beginning of calendar 2020, we were seeing that there were early signs of revival in the economy. The tax cuts, the interest rate cuts, the liquidity, all of these things were bound to help us. But unfortunately, with COVID, we kind of hit a wall. And I think, yes, this year we were denied our recovery. In fact, we've been served a setback. But I'm very confident that this is the beginning of a new economic cycle. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we are bound to see the kind of growth which was denied to us in the recent times. It's easy for me to say, very difficult for people to implement, but there is no choice other than to not only remain invested, but invest more and more regularly. And the last thing I've learned is that people who invest in the good times, but they hold back in the bad times, they cannot make above average returns. The biggest mistake which investors make is that they invest when they feel very, very confident. They feel confident when the markets are booming. And that's not a recipe for making outsized return. The recipe for making outsized return is to have the guts to invest when you are not feeling very confident, because you don't feel very confident only when your past returns are not encouraging. What is the summation of all this? Past return, what kind of return you will get in the future has nothing to do with what kind of return you got in the past. In fact, if there is any relation, it is an inverse correlation. So I think people should keep that in mind.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you. So, my observation is also that most investors, when they first think of equity, they first think of risk rather than thinking of return. The core objective of investing into equity has to be return. Risk has to be obviously assumed, but if one first thinks of risk, one will never be able to invest. And the opposite is what investors do when they think of investing in debt. They first think of return and then think of risk, and that is where they get trapped into high risk credit funds, or maybe high risk concentrated portfolios. So absolutely, fully agree with you. Now, this is my last question to you. So you are coming from an asset management company which has actually taught everyone the power of buy right and sit tight, which is power of compounding basically, right? And then identifying quality, investing in quality. So obviously, it is to an extent rhetorical from the perspective of saying that yes, buy right, sit tight. But when events like the way it happened today, there are many investors who may have got trapped in running small and mid cap stocks, right? So there could be a possibility that some investors may have today sold some quality names, and may have invested in some of the small mid cap funds or some of small cap stocks. So, what is your take? What is your piece of advice to those investors, and not in theoretical terms, not in
Yeah.
rhetorical terms, in
Yeah.
practical terms, in the context of today's market, in the context of current valuations, and
Yeah.
absolutely assuming that the objective is long-term wealth creation, and long-term
Yeah.
move means 7 to 10 years. So, keeping those yardsticks in mind, what are your words of wisdom based on
Mm.
your learnings from an asset management company, Motilal Asset Management, right, which has taught all of us the power of buying right and sit tight. Or if you believe that maybe that thought process may not be true in current context, you're absolutely happy to answer accordingly,
Yeah.
right? Over to you.
No, so if you, I mean, I worked for very long with MO, and I'm very, very passionate about that company and the investing. And basically, I'm passionate about equity, and I'm passionate about investing in mid caps. And of course, I had a long innings, and I played some role in growing that organization. And I'm very passionate about the organization itself. And I think since you're asking about small and mid caps, for example, in MO, a lot of our portfolios, and the conviction showed in the portfolios, because a lot of portfolios had significant exposure to small and mid caps. Now, literally, for example, I mean, I observe the markets on a daily basis because that is my responsibility and my job, irrespective of where I am. Now, today, for example, the guys who have invested in mid cap portfolios, in say MO or in any other organization's portfolios, it's a fantastic day. I mean, I was just, when you were asking me, I hadn't seen the closing of the market because I've been busy. Now, if you see the small cap index, there are so many stocks which are up anywhere between 8 to 15%. And by the way, they are not junk. Okay, even if you see small cap index, the stocks are like, what is up in a big way. They are stocks like, for example, Aegis Logistics or a Birla Corp. You know, now these are all stocks which are part of the quality small and mid cap portfolios that created in MO, in Motilal Oswal. And bulk, I mean, most of the stocks which are up 8 to 15% are in their portfolios. Now, on a day like today, look, before I moved out, for example, from February, March till August, I was there. Very challenging scenario. And I think I must have spoken in at least 100 to 200, actually, understatement, maybe hundreds of webinars, and spoken to so many clients on webinars and conference calls, where it was very difficult to explain that why you are not making money in the last 2 to 3 years. In fact, very difficult to explain why you are negative after having stayed for 2 to 3 years. But the reality is that these companies are good companies. And sometimes what happens is what is unfortunate is that a lot of times investors determine the quality by seeing the price. आप चाहे कुछ भी बोल लो, दाम नीचे है तो कंपनी खराब है, और दाम ऊपर है तो कंपनी बढ़िया है. ऐसा होता नहीं है. It's not true, right? There are very, very good companies. Now, for example, I gave example of Birla Corp, 20 million ton cement capacity, right? One of the highly respected companies in the right geographies with the right integration with raw materials, etc. But 3 साल से दाम आधा है तो आधा है. Profitability बढ़ रही है, cost control में आ रही है, but still the market is paying not even half the valuation what it was paying 2 3 years back. So what happens is that sometimes markets go through their own cycles, and the markets, they fall in love. I mean, they fall in and out of favor of styles and sectors and stocks, and we have to keep patience. अगर जो चीज हमको 2017 में बहुत अच्छी लग रही है, तो उन चीजों का दाम गिर गया तो भाई अब 2020 में ये सब चीजें बकवास है, ऐसे नहीं होता है. Doesn't work that way. If you're willing to pay 100 rupees for something in 2018, now unfortunately that same thing is in 2020 at 50 rupees, doesn't mean it has become bad. It just means that yes, there is a discount right now, the price is down. If you have so much conviction, you please buy more. Now, at the same time, I know of investors who, despite the tough situation, after listening to so many webinars and conference calls, they still had the guts and they believed what we said, and in April and May they actually invested more. Now, it's obvious, right? The guys who invested in April and May, they are going to not only see a recovery in their portfolio, they are going to see splendid returns. But the guys who invested in 2017 and 18 and in 2020, April and May, they just sat back on judgment and did not act on the market. Now, obviously, they will take time to recover. So, my simple submission is that दाम अच्छा है तो कंपनी अच्छी है, पोर्टफोलियो अच्छा है, फंड मैनेजर भी अच्छा है. दाम गिर गया तो सब कुछ खराब है. That logic is very, very bad. That's not the way to invest. Yes, sometimes you realize in hindsight that, oh, I think I have invested at the wrong level. My advisor has put my money in at the wrong level. My fund manager has bought certain stocks at the wrong level. Yes, that happens. Sometimes we come to know in hindsight. But then that's what cycles are for. That's why we say that equity is cyclical. And that's where we need to show our maturity and our patience. The investors who are not patient, who do not demonstrate maturity at the worst of times, and who allow their emotions to overcome the investing basics, then I think it is going to be a difficult situation. But anyway, all that is in the past. My sense is that the worst is over. I was always quite sure that the worst is over. I think March and April was probably the worst. And I'm not saying this in hindsight. Uh, if you go back and see what, when I was in my previous organization, if you go back and see what I wrote in my blogs on 19th March, what I wrote in my blog on end of March, you will find that whatever I'm saying is exactly what I have stated. And I was quite sure that the worst is behind. And I think from here on, a new cycle is beginning.
So, if you were in the place of an investor and you had to invest your 100 rupees in current context,
Yeah.
right? So, most investors would start from somebody at your age. So, give yourself to be an HNI investor.
No, you can see I have a lot of gray, so they will not start at my age.
No, absolutely. So, you had mentioned that PMS as a structure has more conducive, I would say.
Yes, there is more flexibility to hold on to stocks, right? I mean, you're not bound by regulatory changes. If you believe that these are the right stocks, you hold on to them and you expect investors to hold hands.
Right, that's fine. So my question is that, what is it that you, so we know that, markets have run up.
Gee.
And investors today are wanting actually markets to come down. Let me tell you, I can tell you many investors were thinking that yes, this announcement will lead to fall in Reliance Industries because everybody wants to get into Reliance Industries. It's like as you rightly mentioned, this cheez ka daam zyada hai, that is seen as gold. So many people have missed entering into Reliance, and Reliance top stock in many of the multi-cap funds, including for example Kotak Standard Multi-Cap Fund, which is one of the largest multi-cap funds, right? So a lot of investors kind of were thinking like that. And today, if markets actually fall because of any unpredictable reason, investors will find it, positive thing to an extent because they are waiting for correction.
देखिए क्या है, I am a little see अप्रैल एंड मई, अगर आप चाहते थे कि मार्केट गिरे तब तो मार्च अप्रैल से बेहतर तो कोई मौका था नहीं. बट तब तो सब नहीं कहूंगा मैं, बट ज्यादातर लोग तब तो जज करने में लगे थे कि ये फंड मैनेजर खराब है, ये पोर्टफोलियो खराब है, बाजार ही खराब है, इंडिया का मार्केट ही खराब है, गवर्नमेंट खराब है, रेगुलेशन खराब है. तो देखिए क्या है, बाजार जब गिरता है तो किसी न किसी कारण से गिरता है. अच्छा, ऐसा जरूरी तो नहीं है जिन कारणों से गिरे वो कारण आपको पसंद आए या आपके प्री अप्रूव्ड कारण हो. सी यू एक्सपेक्ट दैट sometime when the market runs up, you're hoping for a correction, right? It was nearly 12,500 in February. You were hoping कि अच्छा चलो करेक्शन आए तो पैसा लगाएंगे, बिकॉज क्या हुआ, पहले जुलाई अगस्त में बहुत बुरा हाल था. Then suddenly a tax cut came. When the tax cut came, huge rally, interest rates cut by RBI, corporate tax cut, तो वो हो गया 12,500. फिर सब सोच में लग गए कि अरे ये तो मिस हो गया, लेट्स होप फॉर अ करेक्शन. नाउ करेक्शन आया तो बड़ा ही वायलेंट करेक्शन, और बहुत ही ऐसे कारण से आया कि सब घबरा गए कि कोविड की वजह से करेक्शन आ गया. नाउ लुक, if you were hoping for a correction, you got it 40% suddenly, right? Now you can't have correction for the reasons which you find acceptable or palatable. Correction can come for any reason. ओनली शर्त क्या है? शर्त यह है कि भाई जब करेक्शन आए तो आप उसका फायदा उठाइए। लेकिन जब फायदा उठाने का मौका आया मार्च अप्रैल में, तब तो हम भी बहुत लोगों से इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, हम भी बहुत वेबिनार्स, कॉन्फ्रेंस कॉल्स, बहुत लोगों को मिलना। मीनिंग आई रिमेंबर आई यूज्ड टू बी डूइंग पब्लिक स्पीकिंग 3 times in a day in April and March and April. आपने भी मीटिंग की थी रामदेव जी के साथ, हमारे फंड मैनेजर्स के साथ, राइट? So the point is that when the time came to really show conviction and to jump in, that time a lot of people were circumspect, they were cynical, they were busy blaming circumstances, blaming fund managers, blaming portfolios, which is natural reaction, but basically at some level it's a emotional reaction. So now you missed that opportunity. Now coming to your original, so I think that when these kind of things happen, you should leave your judgment aside and emotion aside and really try to take advantage of it. Some have done it, some may not have done it, right? Now coming to your question of if I have 100 rupees and if I have to allocate today, I would be careful, because yes, suddenly too far, too soon, we have just shot up. So I would allocate money between now and March 2021. I would spread it over the next 6 months. And more importantly, continuing in the vein of what I said before, I would be overweight on small and mid caps right now. Forget what happened on the weekend and what the regulatory change is. Those are, see, जैसे आपने बताया कि थोड़ा रिलायंस बिकेगा, लोग स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप खरीदेंगे क्या, ये बट इट मे हैपन, आई डोंट नो, बट दैट्स टैक्टिकल. उससे कोई किसी का बंगला नहीं बन जाएगा. वो अनुमान लगाने से किसी का कोई बहुत बड़ा वेल्थ क्रिएशन नहीं हो जाएगी. बट येस, I would definitely invest, considering the market ran up a lot. I would watch for the economic news and the corporate news. I would invest between now and March, and I would be overweight on small and mid caps. That's how I would put it.
Right. Thank you so much, Ashish. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and all
Thank
the
you,
very
Kamal. Thank you for calling me.
pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.